And we're back, folks, here on hashtag AskGSM, episode 289, coming your way here today for June 12, 2019. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. As we do every single week right here on the show, I answer your questions from the Twitter machine, Facebook, YouTube. If you want to send in a question, you can do so by tweeting me at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Leave your question on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comments section of this very video. I'll include it in next week's edition. So without further ado, let's get right into it here today. First, from Elena the Y from YouTube, their question was, I'll be honest, I didn't watch WWE Super Showdown, and I tapped out watching Raw halfway through the Shane McMahon promo. I may be missing something, but what's the end game with Shane's push? The Miz feud actually set Miz up perfectly as a face, except he lost one-on-one twice. Actually make that 3 times, because I know you sent me that during SmackDown last night. You probably didn't watch SmackDown, nor should you have, because the show sucked. But on SmackDown, he beat Miz again. Miz, the whole thing was, real quick before I get to the rest of your question, for those that may not have watched SmackDown last night, the whole thing was, Shane promised Miz, okay, I'll give you one more match with me if you can beat Elias, and then Drew. Miz beat Elias, he lost to Drew. Shane granted him his match anyway. Obviously, it went all of 30 seconds. He tapped him out. So Miz tapped out to Shane fucking McMahon, who is now 3-0 against The Miz. Keep that in mind. But anyway, the rest of your question includes, Roman Reigns is the biggest and most protected full-time face, and he lost too. This feels like a borderline Vince Russo books himself to win the world title and shaves Ric Flair's head situation. And at this point, I'll be surprised if that's not what this becomes. Honestly, there's a lot of people who are saying Shane McMahon will be WWE champion before long. He will be WWE champion by SummerSlam, beating Kofi. And honestly, I would not rule that out. And that is very scary to think that. But if you think about it, Shane has now beaten Miz 3 times. He's beaten Roman Reigns. Who else is there for Kofi Kingston to face? Who's already beaten Daniel Bryan and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and now Dolph Ziggler. I think a Kofi Orton feud would be great. They don't have many other top heels on SmackDown for him to defend against. I think Orton would be ideal. Lars Sullivan is an option, but I wouldn't go there at this point. I mean, he's just getting started. He just had his first match on the main roster last Friday at Super Showdown, so I wouldn't go that far that quickly. Shane would be a fucking mistake. So no thanks. But you never know with this company. That could very well might be where this is headed. Shane beats Kofi for the title, and then Roman beats Shane for the belt to get his win back. How fucking disgusting would that be? I don't think that might be even worse than Lesnar cashing in his briefcase on Kofi, and then Roman beating him for that belt too. The end game is going to be Roman Reigns becoming WWE champion. I can guarantee you that. So the end game with Shane's push, if there even is an endgame, which I'm not sure it is, and I hate even associating the word endgame with Shane McMahon because that movie was so fucking good, so it kind of taints the Avengers for me now, but I would not be surprised that that's where this is headed. Shane McMahon, WWE champion, and then Roman Reigns beating him for the belt. To be quite honest with you, and I hate to even say that or put that idea in their heads, but I feel like they already have that idea in their heads, and that's where they're going with this. Because otherwise, why else would you have him beat The Miz 3 times? Why else would you have him beat Roman Reigns? I don't think Miz is ever getting his win back. I really don't. I think Roman will. Either whether the title is on the line or not, let's hope to God it's not. But I do think Roman will beat Shane again, but maybe with the stakes a little higher next time, which, again, I fucking hate that idea to death. It would bury Kofi Kingston 6 feet under, and I just got done talking about today on Bleacher Report, G-Plug, check it out, about how Kofi Kingston's been a great WWE champion so far. He's done some great work in the ring, on the mic. He's been protected very well. To build him up just to lose to Shane fucking McMahon would be one of the biggest disgraces they could do, possibly. One of the biggest miscarriage of justice, whatever the fucking word would be, the phrase, whatever. That would be one of the worst possible booking decisions they could make. So let's hope to God that's not the end game here. FD from Facebook It's got a few questions here. First one being, with Kenta suddenly entering himself into this year's G1 Climax tournament, and Jon Moxley, Shingo Tajaki, I honestly do not know how to pronounce that last guy's name, so I apologize. And Will Ospreay also declaring themselves wanting to enter the tournament as well. Do you see this year's G1 Climax to be the best New Japan has ever held in your opinion? Well, to say that would imply that I've seen every previous G1 Climax. I haven't. I haven't even seen one. I think I maybe have seen a match or two from past tournaments, but that's about it. So I can't say that wholeheartedly, having never seen a previous G1 Climax. That's like asking me, is Jeff Cobb the best PWG champion they've ever had? Well, I've never seen a single PWG show or a single PWG champion, so I'm probably the wrong person to answer that. But I will say this. Based off the talent that you mentioned, Ospreay, Shingo, who I heard is amazing, I think he was the one who had that great match with Ospreay at the Dominion show on Friday, Saturday. They had an amazing match. Moxley, Kenta, that's a lot of talent right there. And I'm sure there's more that I'm missing here that I know entered, but I'm just not thinking of right now. This tournament could be fucking amazing. Actually, I expect standard in terms of in-ring action every single year that passes. They are like the measuring stick in terms of in-ring awesomeness in pro wrestling today. So that's kind of hard to say. Will they be able to top themselves? It remains to be seen. But based on who they have, it's not a stretch to say this could be the best G1 Climax they've ever done. So we'll see. But I'm looking forward to it. I'll be sure to check out a few different matches. There's a lot of matches in this thing that they could potentially do that could be a lot of fun. FD's second question, do you feel the constant and consistent appearance of Shane McMahon as the top heel on both Raw and SmackDown Live is a sign of desperation from WWE Creative with their struggles to make compelling storylines to attract viewers to stay with the product as competitors loom near? Yeah, I think it is a sign of desperation. I really do. I mean, the whole thing with Shane, I like Shane. This has been done to death. I'm fucking sick of Shane McMahon. And I know that's supposed to be part of it. Oh, he's a heel. You're supposed to hate to see him. But it's at a point now where it's like channel-changing material. Because if no one is getting their win over Shane and he's being built up to look unstoppable, then why the fuck should I care? If a non-wrestler, it's like David Arquette, the same shit that we saw with David Arquette in WCW all those years ago, where he became WCW champion. I don't know if he was booked as strongly as Shane was, leading up to him winning the title. I would argue probably not. I would think not. But with Shane now, the guy's a non-wrestler. Interference or not, he should not be beating The Miz and Roman Reigns as consistently as he has been, because it makes the rest of the roster look like fucking losers. Now, it would be one thing if everyone on the current roster was a star and they felt special and they were invincible like a Randy Orton is, or a John Cena is, or an Undertaker is, or a Goldberg, but they're not. 90% of the current roster is so fucking damaged by this current booking. Almost nobody feels special. So when you compound that with Shane beating everybody, we're given zero reasons to care about all these people. Specifically Miz, who has now lost to Shane 3 times. Roman losing, after all the people that he's needlessly beat over the years, probably including Drew at Stomping Grounds and also back at WrestleMania. It's a fucking joke. It's an absolute joke. And it is a sign of desperation that they don't know what to do with the current roster they have. So they resort and they rely on that old regime of Shane, Goldberg, Undertaker, Randy Orton, John Cena, who we have not seen in a while, but Triple H, people like that. It's like, Jesus fucking Christ. Just let it go and focus on the current guys. So when those other people won't be working consistent TV, like a Shane would be, they rely on Shane, because they can't make new stars, or at least they choose not to, or they're too lazy to, whatever the case may be. It's ridiculous to rely on a guy like Shane. At least with those other people, they're old-timers, but at least they're legends in the ring. They're former WWE champions, they have accolades. Shane is a fucking non-wrestler, and he's always been a non-wrestler. So it makes everyone else look like shit. Even more so than if they lost to an Undertaker, or a Goldberg, or a Triple H. Shane, it's even worse, because the guy punches look like shit. The guy can't wrestle for shit. Oh, we can jump off a fucking 20-foot story building, or 20-story building, whatever. That's amazing, but it doesn't do anything to make the current roster look good by any stretch. I thought we got the whole Shane McMahon thing out of the way back in 2016, 2017. It's 2019, and the guy's still involved in high-profile matches. What the fuck? So yeah, it absolutely is a sign of desperation, and it's just damaging the roster even more than it's already been damaged. His next question: do you feel surprised that the current WWE main champion Seth Rollins, Kofi Kingston, Becky Lynch, that all initially had massive momentum beneath them on the road to WrestleMania, and also a lot of fans' choice to hopefully win their titles at WrestleMania a few months ago, have failed to even attract the current audiences right now? And do you think those same diehard fans who want them to win their who wanted them to win their major titles at WrestleMania have mostly moved on to other alternatives once they won their titles? Also, do you think that this problem is reminiscent of during Diesel's WWF title reign during the New Generation era, with the audience decrease and creative crisis situation? Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that fans are fickle. I mean, a lot of fans are fickle, as Daniel Bryan would say, fickle. But it seems like once people win their championships or they reach the apex of their careers, people are like, I'm kind of souring on them, or I don't care about them as much. And obviously the money is in the chase, like, that really is the place to be. But, like, it goes both ways. I think the fans have significantly cooled down on Becky specifically, out of all three people you mentioned. They're all very much over. Kofi, Becky, Rollins. But I don't think it's really as much of a slam dunk anymore to say that Becky Lynch is the most over person in the entire company. I don't think she is. To me, she feels like just everyone else at this point. Rollins, Kofi even get bigger reactions than Becky does at this point. 2 months removed from her big WrestleMania win, which they'll mention at any chance they get. But it doesn't make her feel any more special. That is all in the booking. It's more a matter of showing and not telling. Telling us that she won the main event of WrestleMania. Okay, we fucking get it. We were there. We saw it. We remember. It was 2 months ago. It wasn't 2 years ago. You don't have to remind me. Show me why she won the main event of WrestleMania. What got her to that point? Why was it her over everyone else that won the main event of WrestleMania? What makes her so special? Show me that. And they have really failed to follow up on her momentum since WrestleMania, largely, at least in my opinion. Rollins, it's not as bad. It's not that these people are being booked poorly. Like, Rollins has won more often than he's lost. Lynch has won more often than she's lost. With Rollins, it just seems like he's doing well, but he's not, like, the guy that he should be. I'm not saying, fucking scramble, put the belt back on Lesnar, but he's doing well in the role, but it could be better. It's not the same Rollins who was on fucking fire every single week about a year ago when he was Intercontinental Champion. Kofi, of all three, I think is doing great in the role. People aren't as rabid for Kofi as they were 3 months ago on the road to WrestleMania. But that's because people really wanted to see him as WWE Champion. But he, I think, as I mentioned earlier, just got done talking about on Bleacher Report this morning, he's been the best booked champion in WWE in some time. The guy has not lost a match in 3 months since he got pinned by Bryan in that gauntlet match on SmackDown almost 3 months ago. He's won every match he's had on TV, whether it be a tag team match, singles match, 6-man tag team match, as we saw last night, title defense. He's come out looking strong. Again, he's not main eventing every pay-per-view, but he's still having very good performances, good matches, good feuds for the most part. SmackDown is fucking dragging through the mud right now, but he's doing his best to be one of the bright spots on that show. So, but I do think it goes both ways. Like, the fans have, not given up on these people, but it's like, once they see them win the championship, they're ready to move on to someone else. To see them get their opportunity, to see them get their time in the spotlight. I mean, I don't know if that's really a wrestling fan thing as much as it is just a people thing. I don't know. People are very quick to move on to someone else. I completely agree with that. But at the same time, it's not largely the fans' fault either. Because the creative that these people are being dealt with, or being dealt here, is fucking atrocious. The promos are very bad more often than not, specifically with Becky. Her promos are just not doing anything for me right now. Rollins' are okay. Kofi's are okay. Becky's are like, I cannot remember the last truly great promo she cut. Probably since WrestleMania. Having a good foil, like a Ronda Rousey, helps. Lacey Evans is not that woman, unfortunately. But yeah, it goes both ways. Is it reminiscent of the new generation era with Diesel as WWE champion? I think so. I would say it's not as bad, but it very well could be. Because I could not tell you the last time Raw was this bad this consistently. Like, we have not had a good period of Raw, or at least like a passable period of Raw, in at least a year. And SmackDown's gradually getting worse too. During the Diesel title reign, yeah, we didn't have as stacked of a roster as we do right now. But honestly, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. Because if we're not getting good matches with this good roster that we have at the moment, what the fuck point does it even serve? What purpose does it even serve to have a good, talented roster if you're not letting them go out there and have the matches they're capable of? I could not think of one above-average, memorable match that I've seen on Raw or SmackDown in weeks. 205 Live had a fantastic Fatal 4-Way on Tuesday night. That was the best match I've seen on WWE TV in fucking ages. So at least there were other points in recent years where Raw was bad in 2013, 2014, you name it, whenever the product was shit. At least we had some great wrestling on the show. On a 3-hour show, you would think they would have at least one standout match. We're not even getting that anymore. So, yeah, honestly, I do think it's reminiscent, very much so, of the Diesel title. It's more so that period. It's not like Rollins is Diesel, where his title reign just isn't working and he's the one to blame for bad business. Because it's not about any one person anymore, the same way that it was maybe 20, 30 years ago. Now it's all about the brand. So if the brand's not selling you on their product, then who cares? It's not a Rollins issue. It's not a Kofi issue. It's not a Becky issue. I saw some people blaming Kofi. Oh, SmackDown's ratings are in the toilet. It's all Kofi's fault. Why? Yeah, just because he's champion, he's the one to blame. Yeah, I mean, it may have worked that way 20 years ago, but at this point, Kofi's not the reason people are tuning into the show. I think he helps, but he's not the be-all, end-all. He's not the reason people are tuning in all the time, and he's definitely not the reason people are tuning out because of how he's being booked or whatever. Again, as they argued, he's done a great job in that role. So putting the belt on fucking Roman Reigns will not help the SmackDown ratings one bit. So don't even go there with me. Next question from John Ritland of the Twitter and YouTube machines at Reborn Again. Check out his YouTube channel for some great content. His question was, did the women basically say what was a pretty lackluster Raw this week? I know the crew was tired from the trip to Saudi Arabia, but most of the show fell flat to me. I mean, the show's been flat for months, so that's nothing new. Did the women save the show? The show could not be salvaged. What were the women even involved in? I think we had that tag team match. It was Becky and Bayley versus Lacey and Alexa Bliss. A good match. It did not save the show. I would not say, oh, Raw sucked, but go out of your way to see that tag team match. No, the thing is that I think people get mistaken. Just because that might be the best thing on the show doesn't make it good. Like, the Orton Triple H match at Super Showdown, people were like, oh, that stole the show. It's like, it's such a dumb comment to make. It's such a dumb thing to say, because the match sucked. It was boring as fuck, but it was more bearable than everything else on that 10-match show, 9-10-match show. So to say that it was the best match in the show, yeah, but that's not saying much when you see what it was up against. The tag team match, not as an egregious of an example, but still, same thing. It's not like, oh my god, that match was amazing. The match was okay. It was all right. Again, what else were the women even involved in this week? Naomi has not been on the show in weeks. She got drafted to Raw. We've not seen her since Money in the Bank, I don't think. I forgot she was even on the roster. That goes to show, how good was it really if I don't even remember what they were involved in? That's no joke. Was it Nikki? Or no, Nikki was in... It was the Iconics. The Iconics were involved. Oh no, they faced those two jobbers. That did fucking nothing for me. They didn't salvage that show. I don't care about the Iconics at this point. And it's less about the Iconics themselves and more about their booking. But no, in my opinion, the women did not save the show. They've already, as you yourself had said, John, as here previous on the show and your own videos as well, they've been booked pretty bad since Ronda Rousey left right after WrestleMania. Almost zero focus on the women. It's like the women's wrestling movement in WWE has regressed, which is an issue. But what we saw on Monday, the back and forth between Becky and Lacey, that sounded scripted as shit. I mean, it did nothing for me. The show sucked. It was not a good show. John's second question, Did you see Jericho versus Okada at Dominion yet? If so, what did you think? I personally think Jericho's matches in New Japan have gotten more lackluster after his Wrestle Kingdom 12 match with Omega. Plus, it was obvious to me that Okada had to carry a very gassed Jericho. I mean, it was obvious that Okada was going to carry Jericho. I mean, Okada's amazing. Jericho's still great. I mean, I still think it speaks volumes about Jericho that the guy is pushing 50, if not already 50. And he could still go out there. Again, he's not going out there and having 5-star classics. He kind of did with Omega at Wrestle Kingdom, like you said. But the fact he's able to go out there at all and have like better matches than I've seen from Undertaker, Triple H, Goldberg, Randy Orton, and ages says a lot. It really does. So before we start shitting on Jericho, oh, he's past his prime, he looks to be in awful shape. Yeah, he's not going in there and having the same match as he was 10, 15, 20 years ago. But considering this guy's age and that he doesn't wrestle every day, like a lot of the people, maybe New Japan or WWE, whatever, he still goes in there and puts in a pretty damn good performance. Again, I've seen better matches from Jericho. This Okada match, again, was not as good as the Omega match, not even as good as the Naito matches from Wrestle Kingdom and then the Dominion match last year. Not even as good as those. But at the same time, this Jericho match, this one Okada match was better than any... Maybe better than any... Not Lesnar, okay. Probably not Lesnar, but better than any Goldberg match I've seen in recent memory, which isn't saying a ton, he doesn't wrestle a lot, but better than any Goldberg match I've seen, Triple H match I've seen, except for the mixed tag team match last year, WrestleMania. But even that might be on par with that match. Any Undertaker match I've seen, abso-fucking-lutely. 120%. Kane match, I think Jericho's doing pretty well for himself. I have not seen the match. I just heard things about it. I saw clips. It looked pretty good. I heard it was pretty good. Not great, but pretty good. His match with Omega, a Double or Nothing, I thought was very good. Far from match of the night. No, not even close. It was good, but not great. His matches, I guess, are getting more lackluster, but again, the guy's pushing 50, so I'm not surprised. I think the guy's doing great work. It's cool to see him in New Japan, making the rounds. We talked about this on Wrestle Rant Radio when you were on, John, a few weeks ago. I had no interest in seeing Jericho as the IWGP Heavyweight Champion. They made the right call, obviously, of course, in keeping the belt on Okada. But I think it's cool to see him in New Japan, working matches we've never seen before. Him and Naito, good match. Him and Omega, dream match. Him and Okada, arguably a dream match, depending on what era we're talking about here. Jericho and now Tanahashi. He's facing all the top guys right now in New Japan, and it's awesome to see before he likely reports to AEW full-time in the fall. John's third question here. Does it seem like WWE or Vince has stopped caring about the women's division since Ronda Rousey left after WrestleMania 35? Creatively, it's almost at a standstill outside of the same 3 or 4 women being used well each and every week. Also, are the women's tag titles ruined already? I literally just got done talking about this with your previous question, so I apologize for repeating myself. But you are 120% correct. They have absolutely not put as much effort and focus on the women since Ronda Rousey took her hiatus right after Mania. They have Becky, who's still very hot, but she's not as hot as she was a few months ago. She hasn't had any super hot matches. Having a great rival, as sick as we were that Charlotte feud with her and Becky, which had to be stopped, but at least they were having great matches every single fucking time. Maybe not at Money in the Bank, but I haven't seen a standout women's match, period, since WrestleMania. Granted, it's been 2 months, but no TV matches that have stood out to me, no pay-per-view matches that have stood out to me from the women of either Raw or SmackDown. Once Ronda Rousey took off, and I think she will be back at some point, the women's division kind of reverted back to what it was pre-Ronda Rousey, and that's a big issue. That's a very big problem because there's a lot of talent there they're just not doing jack shit with. Ember Moon, aside from the exclusive videos on the YouTube channel and WWE.com, when was the last time that she was on SmackDown? When was the last time Naomi was on Raw? It's cool to see they're doing stuff with Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss and Bayley and Lacey Evans is fucking, God forbid, all over the show recently. And I like her, but it's Jesus Christ, does she have to be on both brands every fucking week? My God. But there's still so much, there's so many women, there's so much talent in that division between both brands, they're just not doing anything with right now. Where the fuck did Asuka and Kairi Sane go? what was even the point of putting them together if they weren't going to be on TV consistently? It's been weeks. The Iconics, don't even get me started. Already talked about this. Yes, the women's tag team titles, while they could possibly be salvaged, everything could be salvaged. Those titles feel ruined to me. They feel like damaged goods. It took them all of 2 months to beat them into the fucking ground. I don't care if it's their gimmick, that they call themselves the longest reigning WWE Women's Tag Team Champions of all time, but they don't actually defend them. I don't care. It's a dumb gimmick. We've already seen it with Brock Lesnar. They're new titles, so they should be establishing them as credible champions. They're not even on the show. They don't even win. It's not like they're not defending the titles, but they win more often than not. They never even fucking win. So why even bother with them as the tag team champions? It's a joke. So, yeah, the women's division is in a very bad spot right now. I mean, again, compared to 10 years ago, it's fucking amazing compared to the Divas days. But compared to recent standards, I mean, it should be a lot better. And they have a lot of women that could be doing way more with. Liv Morgan has yet to debut on SmackDown. I'm not the biggest Liv Morgan fan, but why even bother breaking up the Riot Squad if you weren't going to do anything with her on the Blue brand? Why even fucking bother? So, again, I totally agree. I think the women are at a standstill right now, if not in a worse spot. And the tag titles, to me, feel completely meaningless and pointless. At the average grunt from Twitter, his question was, what are some good matches that can be watched to rekindle one's love of wrestling? Really need those kinds of suggestions right now, because I feel like my interest in the business is slipping and slipping with each passing day. So, matches to watch to rekindle your love for wrestling. That's a good question. The main roster is tough, because I can't think of one like great match I've seen on Raw, SmackDown, or a WWE pay-per-view in months, if not longer than that. But if your love for wrestling is slipping and not WWE's, then you need to go out and watch other shit. You need to. If you're losing interest in Raw or SmackDown, that's perfectly normal, and I don't blame you one bit. But if you're not watching NXT, or even 205 Live had a great show on Tuesday. Chad Gable's on the show now. He faced Jack Gallagher in a great match. The four-way, the main event of that show, was terrific. One of the better matches I've seen on WWE TV in some time. Check that out. So watch 205 Live. Watch NXT. 205 or TakeOver 25 was phenomenal. It was a phenomenal show. So definitely check out NXT more often. Watch any match from that show. Johnny Gargano and Adam Cole is an amazing match. And watching any one of those TakeOver main events should rekindle your love for pro wrestling. And if it doesn't, I don't know what to tell you. But you can move outside of the WWE bubble if you want to. There is also Ring of Honor, which doesn't have a lot of buzz around it right now. But, they're doing some good stuff over there. New Japan. My God, I heard Will Ospreay in Shingo at Dominion had an amazing match. If that doesn't rekindle your love for wrestling, then you're probably not a real wrestling fan. That match is outstanding. Jon Moxley and Juice Robinson, I heard had a very good match. Last week, I watched the match for the U.S. title, the IWGP U.S. Heavyweight Championship match. Great match. Check that out. I'm trying to think. Anything NXT is what I watch. Impact does some good stuff. They had a great match a few weeks ago between Michael Elgin and Rich Swann. I know a lot of people aren't the biggest Michael Elgin fans. I'm not either, but I thought that was a great match too. So any one of those matches, Adam Cole versus Johnny Gargano, Rich Swann versus Michael Elgin. From Ring of Honor, I can't think of it like Jeff Cobb and Will Ospreay had a great match at the G1 Supercard over WrestleMania weekend. The main event of that show, Okada versus Jay White for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, was a fantastic match. Again, anything in New Japan, AEW put on a lot of great performances. If you didn't watch AEW Double or Nothing, you're missing out. I thought that was a very fun show. That tag team match, Pentagon Jr. and Phoenix, the Lucha Brothers versus the Young Bucks, was phenomenal. Watch that. Watch Cody Rhodes versus Dustin Rhodes. Fantastic match. So again, there's a lot of wrestling out there. A lot of great wrestling if you look hard enough. And a lot of these places, you don't have to look hard at all. NXT is right there in the network. If you have a network subscription, sign up. Watch the takeovers. It's worth it for the takeovers alone. If you watch only the takeovers and episodes of NXT TV, Tonight they're doing Kushida versus Drew Gulak in a submission match. That should be great, too. Matt Riddle and Roderick Strong, also from TakeOver 25, another phenomenal match. So again, there's a lot of great wrestling out there right now. You just have to go and look. Let's see. At Jeremy8911 from Twitter, his first question. Got a lot of questions from Jeremy. His first question was, do you think EC3 should have been paired with Shane McMahon instead of Drew McIntyre? Does it even matter? Like, it doesn't matter if it's EC3, Drew. The alliance is hurting him because he's better than this shit. With EC3, I guess it would be slightly better because it's not like he's doing anything anyway, but really would it have made that big of a difference? Because EC3 is like an Elias. Elias is better off than EC3 right now, that goes without saying, but like Elias is associated with Shane McMahon. Does that make him a top heel on the show? Not at all. The guy's a loser. He lost to Miz in 2 minutes on Tuesday. So even if EC3 was in that spot, it would not have changed anything. The feud would still suck. And instead of getting Roman and Drew at Stomping Grounds, it would be Roman and EC3, which I guess could be good. But the issue is that this guy's been beat like a fucking drum for so long, it's going to take a lot more than a Roman Reigns feud to get EC3 back on track. If they allowed him to be EC3, none of this bullshit with the 24/7 stuff, which I enjoy, but like, just let the guy be EC3. Don't pair him off with Shane. Don't pair him off with anyone else except for maybe Drake Maverick. If you let the guy shine, he will get over and he'll do great things. But if you limit him, regardless of whether he's associated with a top heel or not, he's not going to go anywhere because he'll come across like a loser like he has been and no one will care. His next question, will WWE ever learn to book a masked wrestler not named Rey Mysterio well? It's been years. I feel like they won't. They've tried many, many times to make the next Rey Mysterio. They tried with Alberto, who wasn't masked, but he was actually masked, I think, in FCW, or obviously before he joined WWE, and he was supposed to be their next big Latino star, and he was for maybe like a year, and then they botched this push, and then it was all downhill from there. So that didn't work. Sin Cara, even before, I think actually Sin Cara came after Del Rio. They tried with him. They fucked him. I mean, that wasn't all WWE's fault. Sin Cara could not speak English. At least the original Sin Cara. He couldn't speak English, and that was just a fucking mess. And the guy was botching a lot, and he kind of shot himself in the foot before he even really got going. So that didn't work. Kalisto they had a shot with. Kalisto's great. He also botches sometimes too. Not as much as Sin Cara. But he had a great run in NXT. He had a great run with the Lucha Dragons. Former 2-time U.S. champion, I think. And yeah, Cruiserweight champion. He's had a good run in WWE, and he could have been, I don't know if he would have been Rey Mysterio level, but he could have been more than what he is right now. But they made people not care and how they botched this push in 2016. So that went nowhere. Who else do they even have? Lindsay Dorado, he's not that guy. Gran Metalik is a lot better than people give him credit for. Gran Metalik is fucking fantastic. But he's just kind of another guy on 205 Live. Got beat by Lars Sullivan within minutes on Raw this week. So again, why should I care about him? So I think Rey Mysterio came up at a perfect time, because if he came up today, I don't think he would have been pushed as heavily and as strongly as he was in 2002 through 2005, where he became Cruiserweight champion, World Heavyweight champion. He won titles, IC champion years later, WWE champion years later. He would not have that same success today. I really don't. With the way the roster is and how they treat people and how you really can't get over on your own, I don't think Rey Mysterio would have succeeded. Meaning that I don't think they will bring in another masked wrestler and be able to treat him well. Treat him like the star that they are, because they do things a certain way in WWE where certain people will just never get over. And it's not because, oh, you're Latino. Like, it's not like they're racist, but like, they book everyone a certain way. Rey Mysterio was allowed to get over the way that he did in the early 2000s because he was very popular with the fans, and they let him be popular with the fans. Nowadays, I feel like they would cut that down. You can only get so far before they knock you down a few pegs. Though, that's exactly why I feel like another Rey Mysterio will never come along. At least not for a very long time, until the leadership changes in this company, and the way that things are set up are not set up the way that they currently are. His next question: what are your thoughts on Alex Marvez's commentary at Double or Nothing? I did not think it was that good. I mean, in the guy's defense, it was his first major show. I don't know where he came from. I think he might have done football or something before he came to wrestling, to do wrestling commentary. But yeah, I didn't think he was that good. Jim Ross was a lot better than I've heard him in years. At least in New Japan. In New Japan, the guy was terrible. Jim Ross was embarrassing over in New Japan. He didn't know anyone's names. Did not know anyone's names. He was constantly confused. He was a lot better at Double or Nothing. Excalibur, I'm a big fan of. I've only seen him twice now, or heard him twice, whatever, at All In and now Double or Nothing. I think Excalibur is excellent. Alex Marvez is not necessary. They don't need a three-man booth. I don't know why AEW feels the need to do a three-man booth. Cody's very traditional. Do you need a three-man booth? I would argue not. So, I mean, maybe he'll get better, but if not, boot the guy. You don't need him. Next question. Let's see if Jeremy's. What are your thoughts on Moxley, Shingo, Kenta, and Ospreay wanting in on this year's G1 Climax? And then his other question was, what are your thoughts on Kenta joining New Japan? I already talked about this before with the G1 Climax, but it's awesome. That's a lot of talent right there. Ospreay and Shingo had an amazing match at Dominion. Moxley's coming off his WWE release and AEW debut. He's motivated. Kenta looks motivated. It's awesome to see. I will likely go out of my way to watch matches in this year's G1 Climax, which I've never done before, to be honest with you. But I will watch it this year, if only for those 4 guys and beyond, because this looks like it's going to be an amazing tournament. With Kenta specifically, it's awesome to see him in New Japan. He's actually never been in New Japan before. He was always a Pro Wrestling Noah guy. That was where he got his start and got over and became successful before joining WWE 5 years ago. So it's really cool to see him in New Japan in the G1 Climax. He looked great on Saturday at Dominion. So I'm very excited for him. I think him going to New Japan is probably the best thing he could have done, because there's a lot of eyes in New Japan right now. It's a hot product. It's a hot commodity. And not only that, but he was never utilized right in WWE. I mean, part of that is not his fault, but shit happens. He got hurt twice. After the first injury, they were never going to push him to the moon, the way that they likely would have originally. And after the second injury, all bets were off. They were like, okay, this guy's injury prone. There's nothing we could do with this guy. He's been out now. He's missed like 2 years of action. Of like the 5 years he was there, 4.5, 2 years of those years, 2 of those years, he was out on the shelf with injuries. So, now he would only get beyond a certain point. He was only going to get beyond a certain level on 205 Live. He was never going to get beyond a certain level on the main roster. They just did not see him in that light. So, him leaving, absolutely for the best. Looking forward to seeing what he does in New Japan. Your thoughts on R-Truth and the 24/7 title picture? I think it's perfect. I like the idea of the 24/7 title. They started out hot. They kind of got cold with it for a few weeks. And now they're back to doing some cool stuff with it between the plane thing and the golf course in the last week or two. I thought that was some funny shit. R-Truth is perfect in this role. R-Truth, I've never been the biggest fan of. I think you guys probably know that. But I've been really enjoying a lot of what I've seen from him in this 24/7 title picture, storyline, concept, gimmick, whatever. He's been really funny to me. I was laughing at the elevator thing was dumb, but I laughed for part of it with him calling like Drake Maverick Hornswoggle. I thought it was funny. So he's definitely the perfect person for this role. Absolutely. His next 2 questions, I'll just kind of tie these 2 together. Your thoughts on it looking like Apollo Crews and Chad Gable are going to become a tag team, and then he sent that in during SmackDown, and then he sent this in. Thoughts on Chad Gable being on 205 Live? Crews and Gable would be a good tag team. I don't know if they were just teasing that, or if that was a red herring. I don't know if he's on 205 Live full time. I'm not sure. I don't know what's going on there. I would think so. Who's to say if he doesn't, he could be pulling double duty between 205 Live and SmackDown Live. I'm not sure. I don't think so. So the Apollo thing, I think, was just meant to be random. Gable, he was in a random backstage segment a week ago on the WWE.com YouTube channel. Like the WWE.com, their website, and then their YouTube channel. It was like one of those Fallout videos. They were interviewing someone, and then you see Chad Gable in the background. I forgot who was in the video or what it had to do with, but you see Chad Gable in the background taking notes. Why? I don't know. So I don't think it's an Apollo Crews thing. I think it was just, he just so happened to be there at that time. So I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what that was all about. I don't see them becoming a tag team. If they did, I think they'd work wonders together, because it's better than what they're doing right now, which is nothing. But Chad Gable going to 205 Live, long overdue. I got to give credit to Jeremy here. He was the one who sent in the question. He called this a long time ago. Jeremy, moreover than anyone else that I've seen on Twitter, online, social media, whatever, has been pushing for Chad Gable to join 205 Live. And I've said it would be a good idea. The same question comes from that wrestling fan too. So they asked about Gable being on 205 Live. I think it's a fantastic fit. Because, again, the guy's not doing anything on SmackDown. He did nothing on Raw. Oh, former SmackDown Tag Team Champion, Raw Tag Team Champion. Yeah, that's cool, but, like, the guy's better than just the tag team stuff. He had great matches with Bobby Roode, Shelton Benjamin, Jason Jordan in tag teams, but it's time for him to move on and do something on his own. And if putting him on 205 Live is what gets him over again, then so be it. It worked for Buddy Murphy, who I guess we haven't seen in close to 2 months, and I don't know what that means, but it's better than nothing. It's better than him fucking taking notes backstage at SmackDown, so I'll take it. And he had a great match with Jack Gallagher, too. Fantastic match with Gallagher. So if that's what we're going to be seeing from Gable on 205 Live, then I'm all for it. At E13A, their question was, what if Firefly Funhouse just goes on forever? That's why the theme song says, this is a friendship that'll never ever end. Rambling Rabbit getting killed becomes a running gag, a metaphor for how Bray Wyatt lost every important feud he was in and nothing changed. Honestly, why the fuck not? The Firefly Funhouse is consistently the best part of Raw every single week, and it has been for 2 months now. I know people are getting impatient. They want to see this guy in the ring. Be careful what you wish for. If done right, Bray Wyatt in the ring could be cool. I feel like when he gets brought back to TV, in the ring, like in an in-person capacity, they're going to fuck it up somehow. They're going to find a way to fuck it up. They've already fucked up Aleister Black with the dumb shit they're doing with him on SmackDown. So why would Bray Wyatt be any exception to that? Honestly, be careful what you wish for. I know I want to see him in the ring too. At this point, he might just be better off doing the Firefly Funhouse. Because it has yet to get old. It's entertaining. Just let it go on forever. Why the fuck not? Just have that go on forever. Just so in the future, when we all stop watching Raw, and the only thing we have to watch from the WWE YouTube channel regarding Raw is a 3-minute Firefly Funhouse, that's perfect. That's all I need to say. So that might not necessarily be a bad thing. Because why the hell not? Because again, it's not like they have any grand plan to do anything with him when he comes back anyway. Let's be honest there. They don't. They move people certain places and then ultimately do nothing with them. So again, why not? Why not just have Firefly Funhouse go on forever? Next question comes from @BeyondNazca from Twitter. Their question was, what needs to happen to SmackDown Live for it to survive on Fox? Is the brand split dead? And if so, what happens to the championships? To survive on Fox, they got to pull in good ratings. That's the only thing they give a shit about. I know it's more original programming for Fox, and that's great. And the ratings, they weren't amazing before, but they're only getting worse. And I think that's why we had the wild card rule, is because of pressure from the USA Network executives and the Fox Network executives. They want to bring in higher ratings for the TV shows. The fucking wild card rule will not solve that. Seeing Roman Reigns twice a week is not going to solve that issue. It just won't. It won't. The brand split, is it dead? It would appear so. And that makes me very sad. Because I think we need a brand split. For all the fucking moronic comments, I love these people who are like, oh, the brand split's a terrible idea. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if they fuck it up, like if they don't know how to do it. If you don't know how to do a brand split, which this company appears to be incapable of, but they did do it right the first time, not like years ago, but I'm talking about like, at the beginning, they took it somewhat seriously for at least a year or two, from like 2016 through 2018. So yeah, they might be incapable, but I feel like they've done right by it before, so it could work. But anyway, with the people saying that are like, with the people that are like, oh, you know, the brand split, it's a fucking terrible idea, just blow it up and have everyone on the show. Dude, that is the worst thing you could possibly do. I hate that argument. It's all personal preference, but if you think a lack of brand split will help this product with this roster, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. I love those people, because the same people that were saying we don't need a brand split, it would be better off if everyone appeared on like all the shows, are the same fucking people who complain about the wildcard rule. And they're like, oh, this is dumb. Why don't you just, well, yeah, if they blow up the brand split, which they've kind of already done that anyway. But the issue is that if you don't have a brand split, that allows people like McIntyre and Miz and Roman and Becky and Bayley and all the top stars to appear on both brands every fucking week. And then when you do that, you have nobody else On SmackDown this week, where was the Intercontinental Champion Finn Balor? Where was Shinsuke Nakamura, the guy who headlined WrestleMania a year ago? Where was Buddy Murphy? Where was Ali? Again, be careful what you wish for. This dumb shit about people saying, oh, the brand split, bad idea, they don't know how to do a brand split, which is partially true. But I'd rather have a less than stellar brand split than no brand split at all. Because with this roster, you can't not have a brand split. Because there's people that are never going to be on TV in that case. Ever. Naomi, haven't seen her in weeks. Ember Moon, haven't seen her in weeks. Asuka, haven't seen her in weeks. You need a brand split. With the roster this deep in talent, you need a fucking brand split. You would have 80 people on the roster in total if you didn't have a brand split. And only a third of them would ever see television time on a consistent basis. We didn't see the fucking Raw Tag Team Champions for a month on Raw because of this dumb wildcard rule, which is a mask for the brand split being dead. The War Raiders, what the fuck was the point of bringing them up if they weren't even going to be on TV? So is it dead? It would appear so, but for those that are celebrating that the brand split is dead, be careful what you wish for. And I hope you're happy, because the show's worse than it's ever been. At least before, when we had a brand split and we had all the same matches, at least there was a consistent television show. I knew what to expect from each show, and there were good parts about each show. There's nothing worth watching aside from maybe Firefly Funhouse on either Raw or SmackDown right now. Because we see the same shit every fucking Monday and Tuesday. The Shane thing, if you didn't get enough of it on Monday, you're getting more of it on Tuesday, whether you like it or not. It's ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. So what do they need to do to stay on, to have SmackDown, to keep SmackDown on Fox? Pull in good ratings. But I guarantee you this, doing this type of shit with the lack of brand split is not going to solve that. And if the brand split is dead, what happens to the titles? You merge them. You don't have 12 titles if you don't have a brand split. When they got rid of the last brand split, they merged the 2 world titles. They had 2 mid-card, which is fine. They merged the tag titles years earlier. They merged the women's titles years earlier. Yeah, you're going to have to start doing that shit. You're going to have to. You can't have it both ways. You can't not have a brand split and then have 12 titles for everybody in the roster. You get a title, you get a title, you get a title. We have too many titles. If we have a brand split, then we need more than we have. We need this many titles. Except for maybe like the women's tag team, which they fucking ruined anyway. The 24/7 title, entertaining but pointless. Like, you can get rid of those belts. Everything else, though, should stay. Both shows should have an equal amount of championships. But if you're not going to have a brand split, then what's the point? Merge them all. At Scarlet1 from Twitter, their question was, worst of WWE Super Showdown. I love how you didn't even bother putting the best, because there was no best. There was no best on that show. For anyone saying, oh, Orton and Triple H was the show stealer, the fuck were you watching? The match was boring as fuck. Oh, because the crowd was going nuts when Orton hit an RKO and Triple H kicked out of it? Who gives a shit? The match for 20 minutes was boring as fuck until they started hitting their finishers like it was WrestleMania. The match sucked. Worst of the show? The main event was awful. Goldberg and Undertaker was a fucking dud. So, there's that. I don't even remember. What else was even on that show? Balor and Andrade was good but disappointing. Triple H and Orton, like I said, was boring as all hell. Maybe not the worst thing on the show, but it was just beyond boring to me. That would be the cure for insomnia. If I had to watch something to put myself to sleep, it would be that match. Braun and Bobby, the effort was there. I just didn't care. I don't even remember what else there was. The Usos versus Revival was good. Not their best outing, but it was good. Was the the Battle Royal sucked. Mansoor winning was cool. I actually really enjoyed that, but the actual Battle Royal was a fucking mess. An absolute mess, as expected. Shane and Roman was terrible. That was probably among the worst things on that show. So yeah, the show was terrible. If you did not watch it, good. Next thing from at Scarlet1, next question. Have you heard of Matt Riddle taking shots at Goldberg, including a tweet involving Lacey Evans? So yeah, the Matt Riddle Goldberg thing, if you don't know about it, if you haven't read about it, educate yourselves. Matt Riddle took a lot of shots at Goldberg during Super Showdown and after the event on Friday. I guess Goldberg previously blocked him on Twitter for some comments that Matt Riddle made about Goldberg being just a terrible wrestler. He doesn't know what he's doing. He made those comments in an interview years ago. So that's where that came from. I don't know why Matt Riddle has such hostility, has such hostility for Goldberg. But, I mean, I like Goldberg. I like Riddle. Is it necessary? Probably not, but it's entertaining as fuck. Someone posted a video. The Lacey Evans thing comes from this. Someone posted a video on Tuesday morning of Bayley. I think it was after the show. Bayley hitting Lacey Evans with a belly to Bayley. Bayley to belly? Bayley to belly? I don't know. I don't remember what it's called. Her finisher on Lacey. And Lacey did not sell it well. People were like, oh, she sandbagged her. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. I don't know. I don't even know exactly what that word means, to be honest with you. But it did not come across well. I think by that, it means that you purposely don't sell it and that you put all your weight into yourself so you don't allow that other person to go through with the move. I don't know. But anyway, it looked terrible. Matt Riddle responded to said tweet saying she must have watched Super Showdown, or she must have watched Goldberg at Super Showdown, or something along those lines. It was funny as fuck. So that's where that came from. But yeah, so I don't know why he has such anger for Goldberg. They're getting me excited for a match we'll likely never see. But I thought it was funny. Again, probably not necessary, but it was funny. And the last question of the day comes from at Scarlet One as well. Their question was, is 205 Live a good place for WWE wrestlers to be on? Because on one hand, the show is still very niche and stagnant in popularity. On the other hand, everyone on the 205 Live roster is regularly featured on the show, in contrast to other WWE brands' infamous neglectfulness. It's better than nothing. And I think Cedric Alexander's tweets give you your answer. The guy was very excited to go to Raw. I was very excited to see him on Raw after being on 205 Live for so long. I was singing the guy's praises for so long now about how he deserves to be on the main roster. But again, be careful what you wish for, because they've done nothing with the guy since he got called up to Raw. He has just been fucking floundering. He had one match with Cesaro, lost. We have not seen him on Raw since. So now he's tweeting about how he misses 205 Live and wishes he was back on the show to face guys like Chad Gable. So I think 205 Live is a better place for people to be on. It's better than nothing. Yeah, the show's not lighting the world on fire. It's not bringing in big numbers for the WWE Network. It's not, people aren't clamoring for more 205 Live action, though they should be after what we saw on Tuesday night. But again, it's better than sitting and catering. What else was Chad Gable doing? Nothing. Taking notes on SmackDown? What the fuck? Who cares? I'm sure he would love to be on 205 Live. He looked as fucking as happy as a pig in shit on Tuesday night when he was on that show wrestling Jack Gallagher. I'm sure it's way better for him than, again, doing nothing on Raw and on SmackDown, so why not? It is much better than being on the main roster and doing nothing. And again, even though 205 Live, only a certain amount of people watch it, it's a niche product, I totally agree with you there. But again, it's got a lot of good matches. At least they can go there, are given time to go out and have great matches and showcase what makes them so special, regardless of whether people are watching it or not. It's, again, better than nothing. It's better than being on main event, which even less people watch and less people care about. So again, I think it's a good thing. And that does it, guys, for episode 289 of Hashtag AskGSM here today. Thank you guys, as always, for sending in your questions. If you want to do so, you can tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Send your questions in on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So until next week, guys, have an awesome rest of your week. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.